In this video, the restricted zone in Mexico and what this means for buying real estate in Mexico as a foreigner. With over 1.2 million North Americans living in Mexico, understanding this zone is crucial for a secure investment. Today, we're breaking down everything you need to know about the restricted zone in Mexico for buying real estate as a foreigner, anyone who's not a Mexican citizen. Breaking it down step by step, Mexico is a thriving real estate market, and there's over 2,000 miles of coastline. However, Article 27 of the Mexican Constitution, enacted in 1917, designates a restricted zone, quote unquote, where direct foreign ownership is prohibited to protect national security and resources. This zone spans 100 kilometers from international borders and 50 kilometers from coastlines. In miles, this is about 62 miles from international borders and 31 miles from coastlines, covering hotspots like Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Baja California, Mazatlan, Puerto Vallarta, large portions of Oaxaca, right? All the popular coastal areas where foreigners would want to buy, it's restricted. Foreigners can still buy property here using a fideicomiso, which is a fancy word for a bank trust, a legal workaround introduced in 1973. So over 50 years of experience using this bank trust structure to own property in Mexico in the restricted zone. Basically, the downside is it has some carrying costs of maybe $500 to $700 per year to maintain the fideicomiso, the bank trust. Before we get to that, let's explore what the restricted zone means, how to navigate it, and the steps to secure your dream property. So, step one, understand the restricted zone and fideicomiso. The restricted zone includes all land within 100 kilometers of Mexico's borders, such as Tijuana, Nogales, and 50 kilometers of its coastline, like Riviera Maya or Los Cabos, covering about 40% of Mexico's territory. It's 40% of Mexico's territory falls in the restricted zone, which I think a lot of people wouldn't realize. Direct ownership by foreigners is banned to prevent foreign control of strategic areas, but the fideicomiso allows you to hold property rights indirectly. A fideicomiso is a 50-year trust, renewable indefinitely, where a Mexican bank holds the title as trustee, and you, the beneficiary, control the property, living in it, renting it, selling it, or passing it to heirs. Outside the restricted zone, like in Mexico City or in Querétaro, you can own property outright with a standard deed. Posts on Twitter highlight the fideicomiso as a secure, transparent process for foreigners. Again, they've been doing it since the 1970s. Quick tip, confirm your property's location with a real estate agent and make sure that it's more than 50 kilometers from the ocean if it's close. So there are some cities that are pretty close. Mérida in Yucatan is right around the 50-kilometer mark, and there are some parts of the cities that you don't need a fideicomiso, and there are some parts of the city that are within that 50 kilometers, and they do need a fideicomiso. So check some of those cities. Step two here, find and evaluate your property. Start by identifying your dream property within the restricted zone, whether it be a beachfront condo in Tulum or a villa in Puerto Vallarta. Quick tip, work with a good notary and ensure the seller is authorized to sell the property by checking the property's history. Make sure that there's nothing going on in terms of inheritance claims or back taxes or any kind of problem. Make sure everything is free and clear and that you can have a clean transfer of ownership. It's really the notary that signs off on a lot of this, and they actually take a percentage commission as their compensation. Step three, set up the fideicomiso with a Mexican bank. To buy in the restricted zone, establish a fideicomiso with an authorized Mexican bank. Select a bank to act as trustee, negotiate the trust process, and obtain a permit from the Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores, the SRE. The bank holds the legal title, but you're the beneficiary with full rights. renewable every 50 years. Costs include the setup fee as well as the annual maintenance fees. You can co-own the property with family or name heirs, and the trust can cover multiple properties. Processing takes 1 to 2 months after signing. And quick tip, choose a bank with a strong reputation, one that's been around for a long time. Scotiabank comes to mind, maybe Banamex, okay? And then step 4, conduct due diligence and sign the purchase agreement. Hire the Mexican Notario Público, a government-appointed lawyer, to oversee the transaction and perform a title search, confirming no liens, disputes, or ejido claims. The notario drafts the purchase agreement in Spanish with an English translation recommended for clarity. Pay a 5 to 10% deposit, or maybe even up to 20% depends if pre-construction or existing property. And then you'll pay that via the wire transfer, typically to an escrow account managed by the notario. Verify the property's cadastral survey and the zoning status with the public registry. The notario is really going to look into this, but you need to be on top of him too and just make sure they're checking all the things. This step ensures a clean title, protecting against scams. Quick tip, insist on a detailed contract listing, including the fixtures, appliances, etc., to avoid post-sale disputes. And then step 5, finalize the purchase and obtain ownership. At closing, the notario finalizes the transaction with a public deed, the escritura pública, transferring the fideicomiso to your name. Register the deed with the public registry of property, a process handled by the notario which takes 1 to 2 weeks, and then you'll receive a deed of trust proving your beneficiary rights and an apostilled copy for international use. The property is yours to use, rent, or sell, with profits taxable in Mexico, probably at 35% capital gains for non-residents. For example, a U.S. buyer in Cancun can rent their villa via Airbnb, managing it through the fideicomiso. Quick tip, keep the notario's contact for future trust renewals or sales. Benefits of buying in restricted zone. Let's talk about that. So, owning in the restricted zone gives access to Mexico's prime real estate. Beachfront properties in Tulum, border homes in Baja. These are some of the highest appreciating properties in Mexico. The fideicomiso can be a good thing because it ensures legal security, with banks like Citibank overseeing titles. You gain residency eligibility potentially via the temporary residency visa after purchase. If your property is worth a certain value, you can get residency, and you can pass the property to your heirs. Mexico's tourism boom, with 45 million visitors in 2024, boosts rental income potential, and Airbnb is totally legal. We have other videos on our channel talking about the Airbnb and rental process, short-term rental process in Mexico. Some practical tips: work with a facilitator for the fideicomiso setup, as well as getting residency in Mexico. MyLatinLife, we're a full-scale immigration consultancy. We can get that residency card in your hands. We can get that fideicomiso set up for you, that legal entity that you need. We can even pair that with the US LLC if you need that as well for asset protection purposes. So there's a link in the description where you can book a call with us. You'll be speaking to us right away. We can answer all your burning questions and get the process started. And that's the complete guide to the restricted zone in Mexico for buying real estate as a foreigner. From setting up a fideicomiso to securing your dream property, these steps ensure a smooth transition. My top takeaway: verify the property's title, work with a good notario, and start with a trusted agent. My top takeaway: verify the property's title, work with a good notario. If your property's anywhere near 50 kilometers from the ocean, get that checked. Make sure that the property is not within the restricted zone, and if it is, realize that you're going to need a fideicomiso. You can ask neighbors, you can ask the real estate agent, but these are questions that you need to be asking to be an informed buyer in the Mexican property market. If you found this video helpful, smash that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. with your favorite Mexican real estate markets or any questions you have about the transaction process. See you in the next video.